Okay. I don't know what happened at the end of that last. But anyways, so we're sitting under the tree, or standing next to the pentagram, as I've done many times in the past. The camera off purposefully for half hours. I thought I can do without it. And my mind is just going. And I'll take a break. But your mouth keeps going. There's some eagles. It's a lot to take in, eh? One can only do so much. You talk, you think, you feel. It's up to the person eventually on the other end to make the most out of it, and then it becomes your responsibility. It becomes your triumph to make something out of what I'm saying or what you've experienced, or to make something out of criticism. You're allowed to chew up people's work. Just don't chew up people. Yeah, I kind of have what I need. The only sort of channels I watch that have to do with being outside are usually bushcraft. And being outside, sleeping in minus 20-degree weather, starting fires out of log shavings, tying up little lean-tos and whatnot. It's really fascinating. Eating, usually people go for sausages, bacon, steak, and eggs. All these things that really I wouldn't think of as something I could subsist off of in cold. I would go for chicken and beef, like ground beef or chicken. Sushi actually is quite good, raw fish. Steak is great, but I don't think I could live off it. Sausage, a snack food. That's not like a meal. Unless you eat like 12 sausages, maybe. And but you can't. I use beans and rice, but I don't stay overnight. So my video is really about being outside and talking about my interactions with humans, which you may notice are generally on the poor side. Violence is always produced by a cult. And wherever there's violence, there is a cult. So feminists figured out that violence towards women was like related to the cult of men. Masculinity being privileged, advantaged, duped, roped into duping, hurting, maiming, absolved of all proportional inhibitions, responsibilities, accountability, because of various bullshit ideas about what men were allowed to do to women in the man's world. It's a theory. It's not perfectly accurate. But it's got all the elements of an accurate theory of human oppression. But remember, they are elements. The element of the scapegoat, right, is being observed as much by women seeing themselves as victims as men, and as much as isolating the gender of man as the source of the effects of the oppression upon women. Men bring oppression to men and to women. Women bring oppression to women and to men in different ways. That in various situations may tell us about an extraordinary, unnecessarily, or dangerous advantage like women or a woman, men or a man, in ways that we could reliably say we don't like about that gender. If purple hits you every day, you would start to hate purple people, right? But you might not necessarily be totally justified in saying, all the world's problems are caused by purple people because other colored people hurt you. But you might say that the purple people are the closest people to the people that are hurting everybody. That the evil that controls oppression becomes indistinguishable from the tool of man's dick to make missiles, phallic-shaped objects, and spear a woman's womb with the unnecessary claims upon her beautiful and dignified flesh and modesty, such as it is. But wait, women can also be seen as a tool used by the state. So that neither men nor women are really in their original estate. In fact, to live in the world, you have to go out of your natural estate. To meet the world that basically oppresses you by never speaking the language of your first estate, the language of the true sanctity of a female, the language of the true sanctity of a man. And so it draws you out of it. If a director comes up to you in a theater of the damned and says, "Hi, Bartholomew. Bartholomew, you're expected to observe this. Bartholomew, you're supposed to act this way. Oh, Bartholomew, he's an awful rapist bastard. Oh, wait, let's take away his testicles and educate him accordingly. Bartholomew, now that's your new role in the theater of the damned." But your name's not Bartholomew. And you're not a rapist. You're being scapegoated by the theater company, forced into the least dignified role. Come on, Bartholomew, get angry. Really get into your role. Because you're a man, no matter how much we hurt you, it's all just the cost that any kind of man has to bear, because all of man in its world has raped women so much, so effectively. It's like an infinite debt. It's like Germany's debt to the Jewish people. It's a holocaust of women. Now, you got all the elements of oppression is in there. Certainly a holocaust of women. Certainly, all kinds of confusing advantages attributed to someone for what seems to be totally arbitrary economic and perverted reasons. Penises, but also those with vaginas, who are constantly being lifted up, employed, promoted, protected, consoled, encouraged. And what happens is women get away with murder. And only claim sort of an arbitrary knowledge if you said that women got to behave a certain way based on sexual arousal and men got to behave or didn't a certain way based on sexual arousal. And as a man, looking at how women behave who are in any sense aroused by me, which exists in a continuum where they could easily rape me and hate my guts. And immediately their vagina starts to secrete various fluids and their eyes start to dilate. And long before that, when they start to make too much eye contact or smile a certain way, right? Already, any prospective relationship in the future, even the most casual one, is now beset with a disintegrating set of factors for me. I become a scapegoat. I'm basically being objectified, right? And this person is behaving towards me with an excessive amount of excitement that it might as well be normal. And I'm because I've come and bought some flax seeds so many times from you. And I made conversation once that seemed to show some considerable understanding of some of your life. Just a general admiration for the work that you do, or the difficulty of high school. And all of a sudden it's like, you're not a father figure, you're a potential penis that's going to go between my legs and put a ring on my finger. That's the logical extension now. Not good. Right? Not good. Because in doing this person a favor, and acknowledging something about them, and in particular something that is not widely acknowledged by their, and in other cases in the same story, acknowledging the concerns and the body language of another middle-aged woman this time that nobody else was acknowledging, altogether produced such a disintegrating bite back that I was forced to never be able to come to that store again. And all I'd done was show moderate, reasonable concern for another human being who happened to have a vagina. All of whose chemical and hormonal responses I could control. And along with the stresses that I was acknowledging something. Something, in fact, the people who weren't acknowledging them were actually doing the right thing by staying away from ever empathizing with these young women, isolating them. Just assume they're fine, right? Don't empathize with them at all, right? They should be working 1,000 hours a week, right? Because God knows what they'd do if they weren't. They'd probably be humping every fence post down the street. You see how misogyny the countervailing point of view is, really. Right? Don't concern yourself. Ignore them. Never a man is so strong or so wise or so diligent, hardworking, sacrificing, beautiful, courageous, artistic, bold, and emboldened than he was cut down by a woman. And reliably as though womankind and mankind. All the trees on this island have all been cut down several times. They do not want a man to grow and to set roots in the land. And what I do, nothing more than one family member, a mother, who recently stopped drinking and domestically and sexually abusing me, whom I love, by the way, and has a reason for being that way, which makes me understand and forgive all. You can imagine what that is, okay? And a coffee cup, and a silly woolen hat that people's dogs, they say, attack me for, that nature gave to me, and a tree with gnarly old branches, all dried up, maple tree, some sticks I put into a pentagram, walking in the cold, talking to myself. Somehow, I can grow stronger roots than most people. Probably not as good at working in a regular job, but then who is? Who's a creative person? A real beautiful man, he took care of mentally challenged people, and he ran a used bookstore. And the woman who sold him the store took him for a ride. And he had to go into debt to her to get the store. He basically took it off her hands. She just didn't want the load anymore, and she wanted to be bought out and then some. So she basically placed him under her debt. And the mother of his children did the same thing. And this man just gave of himself all of his life. But men, when they make these kinds of mistakes, if you could call them that, they become economic slaves to women. Matrimony does that to men. And it's not just women, economics, such as it gets into people's compulsions and reality. So that the nicest French woman running the used bookstore on the Gulf Island of British Columbia, Salt Spring Island, all of a sudden becomes a bit of a usurer. And she finds a nice philosopher who would love to take over her bookstore that isn't making any money. And all his friends come in and masturbate in the corner. All her hippie friends, right? And she doesn't really have a very mind to begin with. I think it's probably just something to do. But I know that a certain amount of money changed hands. I know that it wasn't good for him. It probably wasn't worth whatever he bought it for, and the rents were growing higher. He tried because he made the mistake of opening up his store to homeless people who didn't understand that he also needed to have money. So, a homeless man, not a homeless man, an older man came in. who would basically troll around Salvation Army type stores and pick up 25 cents that he thought were important, bring them to Ken's store and try to sell them for $5, $10, or $20. And he brought in a book one day, and Ken was like, no. And he had a book store he couldn't sell. He said, no. It's like, oh, no, come on, you must take it. He's French, right? You must take it. No, it's a great book. You should take it. No, and eventually I'm working volunteering. I stand up and say, look, he said no multiple times. That's it. You understand? And this man turned on me and began uttering some sort of almost female-like hysterical sequence of sounds. And I just looked at him and blah, 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 right in his face. Blah, 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 blah. You know? And he just got up and stormed out and never came back. Such a malicious cunt as I've never seen in my life. And you think, what is fucking wrong with these people? My friend Ken was giving his life, living on fucking next to nothing, working his balls off, running this unprofitable, basically homeless shelter under the pretext of a bookstore. And the homeless people and the hippies come in and they use the space. They don't buy any fucking books. And they just sit around talking about simulated masturbation when any fucking decent person comes in the store or square who wants to maybe buy a book off of Ken. Such fucking thankless fucking ingrates as I've never seen in my life. Disgusting, every one of them. Some hippie girl comes in and starts trying to take over the store, and eventually I just get so stressed out I leave, and she verbally abuses me on the way out. She tried to hit me up on my dating profile, so I use it for entertainment. And I said, oh yeah, I remember the old store there, and she just never got back to me. She's a freak. Right? So many women are like spring-loaded for aggression at men. And they don't realize that they're lowering their inhibitions as to have a reasonable provision for the voice and safety of someone who in their mind is just making them feel bad and represents everything bad that men have ever done to them. Right? While retaining the prerogative to get emotional, to get upset, to get stressed out, and to do almost anything, and to be protected from any kind of boundary on how they express their emotions or their stress on various men or women or gender. That being the case, you can see where it goes to excess. Remember, women of this nature as well as any other one, have the primary care of human beings during the most vulnerable parts of their life. I've met females who will tell me that their son, usually, is homeless. Or their son died through mysterious circumstances that they can trace back to how they treated them when they were young. And they're like proud of telling me the story. Oh, I don't know why they're homeless. I've had them say to me, my son grew up, he was always like a homeless person. Ignorance, right? And you might say, a complete maternal interest in their child's well-being. And or trauma. Oh, shit. Just got to flee here. I don't know where my... No, I look, I lost my joint. It must be there on the log because I don't imagine. Well, maybe I dropped it somewhere. I'll go walk back. That sucks. It wasn't really smoking very well, but... Oh, here it is. Fuck. Sorry. I'm not usually inclined to lose things. Okay. What a sucky feeling it was. But it's back. All right. And I take my time, that I have time. I have too many things to think about with women that have come up to me and said these kinds of things. I don't think I've ever met a woman, except my mother, who's even really capable of having a child. Many women, particularly in certain regions, who rape the father of their first child, who's usually an underage boy. Amazing how often it happens. And they have no inhibitions about the age of the men they fuck. Erection, and they're horny perverts. Hey, if they can get horny, you can fuck them. And that's the only boundary they need. And these same women have made my job easier by trying to rape me the first time I ever saw them. And being violent because I didn't want to. And I was actually experiencing physical unrest at their ovations, and their solicitations. And you get to learn their value. And the same woman I'm talking about was in my house once with two other women bragging about raping young boys. One of them trying to rape me that night in my own home, where they're a guest, mother. The daughter and a future prostitute of the RCMP officer, and you'll hear that a lot because they're perverts. The RCMP, they're all perverts. Stay away from them. It's an incredible crime deterrent. The only people who should with the RCMP are people who want to be molested sexually. Okay? But unfortunately, even if you're a perfectly decent 15-year-old girl like my auntie, who becomes a prominent psychiatrist in the Vancouver mainland area, that is not enough to prevent an RCMP officer from being able to rape you in broad daylight in high school during operating hours. Amazing that nobody saw anything. Boy, he must have been really horny that day. And if you look at their wives, you can kind of understand. I'm not sure if it was vaginal or anal or oral, because she was not saying. She had to go on with her life. I wonder what his cock tastes like, eh? I wonder what an RCMP officer's cock tastes like. I wonder one day if I'll get a chance to find out so I can bite it off, you motherfuckers. Because it's a cult for the queen making system. Do you think cults don't have sexual abuse? That is the evidence of a cult. It's the effluent of a cult. When you're part of any system that's based on an economic subterfuge that exploits and advances the interests of a kind of leverage and strength that is built into the way human beings develop and pursue their survival interests in the world, subsequent to primal threats to their maternal and paternal relationships, you're going to get sexual abuse and violence of various kinds. It has nothing to do with sex, everything to do with dominance and bereavement. Officer's probably dead by now. Right on. Right? He'll get recycled and maybe try to be a decent person. But the thing is, what nobody tells you, is that the people that rape people are raping people every lifetime, because it's usually part of their occupation. And a lot of people do similar occupations every lifetime. I know my last 4 lives. I know what I did for a living, or didn't get a chance to do, because in my last life, I was someone who was only allowed to about the age of 17 or 18 before being killed in World War II. Fodder. But people that rape will pursue similar occupations that allow them these compulsions. You're all trying to be spiritual and get onto the next plane. You're not going to rape anybody, but these people are. These women that I've met, yes, they've been raped when they're young, but they're also raping people every lifetime, as men or women. People who rape are lifetime after lifetime criminals. And even then, they are the effect of an oppressive world. So is something that allows them to be sexually predatory. And a lot of young mothers are these types of people. Imagine how many kinds of people in human history have been a part of occupations that were extremely oppressive and extremely stressful, so that maybe the boundaries between consent and not became blurred in a way that was in their interest and not in the interest of others. Right? And I don't think a lot of rapists will stop until they're put to death publicly. Because I was put to death publicly in another rarer past life when I lived in a somewhat Western environment, and I screwed and raped a prostitute. I believe I strangled her to death. And I understand from experiences that I've had as a young boy what kind of circumstances can produce incoherent, monstrous violence out of one's flesh and blood. And I was hung for that, by the way. And the spirit of the woman waited there for me to be hung and saw my spirit and then went off. She had that closure, see. When someone rapes, they should be publicly executed. Then people will stop raping. And then you'll get really fine educational systems for understanding the nature of consent. Right? Which is really what sex education should be about. And for men it should be, guys, girls, an erection isn't consent, right? A woman looking at you and going, oh my, it's hard to take you all in, is not consent. But it can be deemed sexually predatory, even if neither person can control. If I'm around your daughter getting an erection, that's predatory, isn't it? I have to control that shit. Not that I would, but get an erection. Erection is not consent. It can be predatory. A woman who's aroused is not consent, and it's predatory. And yet one or neither person has to really be aware of what's going on. You have to find out from the opposite sex what they really have to offer you related to their genitals. Because for sure, that's not going to, and it's certainly not going to last as long as you want if you don't find out who you're with. Royalty, mate for life. That's why movies are often starring one another in different aliases, because they work together, they mate for life. A lot of what royalty know is how to keep love alive on the human race. And we launder their debts. They convert it all into debt that we launder, and we consent to launder. So we're paying for their royalty. Their royalty and their lives, and such as they are, need to be, we pay for them by believing their lies. And it becomes our responsibility. The soldier is responsible for everyone he kills. But anyway, dark stuff. We never see anyone talk about this. There's probably about noon. And head home soon. I forgot how feminine this maple tree is. It looks like one maple tree is humping the other. Dark stuff, but I've seen it. I've been in a position to notice how women behave towards me. It's usually predatory. I walked into a pot store, and more than once, but in this occasion, and one woman there was making way too much eye contact. We had the masks on, right? Way too much eye contact. Way too much eye contact. And it's like, for a lot of men, it would be thrilling. And I couldn't take it. And the last time I was there, her eyes were dilated. She was dropping the F-bomb. She was finding reasons to be physically close to me. And in a sense, but in ways I couldn't control, she was kind of arousing me. Started saying things that were just a little more than I would really say to someone about things I think about. And she was becoming very excited about the kind of person she was talking to. And it was clear where this was meant to go. And it's like, I don't want to ride the female estrogen roller coaster for the rest of my life. And to base the rest of my life because her pussy enjoys being near me. It's like her pussy would be my god. My pussy is wet. You must mate with me and possibly make children. Hey. It's like, why should the pussy pronounce you dead, married, or anything else? I don't want your pussy anything to do with your interaction with me. You put that thing away, right? But just like men get erections, women produce estrogen out of their follicles of their pussy hair, whether they're shaved or not. It is not just contained in their panties. It goes out into the space around. It is only that men and boys who grow up are overexposed to estrogen from their teachers, their female teachers, female classmates, and sure enough, mature sexually faster than the boys. Because, that's to oppression on the one hand, but the opportunity is there. Because they're the producers of the dominant chemical attending the development of both sexes. Remember, we're both produced from a very estrogen-like environment in a mother's womb. So they're taking boys away from their mothers as well, away from their fathers. And the girls are maybe receiving all the different end strength, testosterone and whatnot. And why do you think there's so many sex changes and different orientations through the public school system? Right? Because it's basically messing with human development. It's your new womb. You're coming as the asshole of the Great Mother now, which is covering up a son of the basic laws, proportions, and organs of your own blood, operating with a song that ministers properly for the proportional challenges and responses of your entire neurochemical, neuroskeletal system. So not only are you physically trapped in the school, you're surrounded by too much information, too much control, too many mothers, and too much hormones. So by the time you're starting to date, you're wrapped in a womb of kind of asphyxiating endometriosis. She's wrapping her words, wrapping her flesh around you. You get to see her breasts. She's kissing you. She's eating you. In movies, they have people basically eating each other, right? Men eat a pussy out, but really the woman is eating the man. She's swallowing up. Estrogen wraps the man. It's his new mother, isn't it? A new womb of his new person. A man, a boy, coming to school has to become something in relation to girls. There's a moment where a young homosexual Indian we were playing soccer with, a lot of the boys who play soccer, grade 7, so about 12 years old, critical time of life. He says one day go over with the other boys who go and talk to the girls. And that changed his life. Now he's with the girls. Now he's in this estrogen, testosterone sort of world where we were just naturally pointing, because it's natural for boys to want to be away from girls. Boys have enough estrogen in their environment. It's a very estrogen-related world. Mothers, malls, makeup, sisters, nieces, grandmothers, aunties. There's a lot of female control around a little boy. Teachers, Sunday school teachers, advertising, films, games, boobs, vaginas, porn. It's everywhere around them. I'm not saying it's an adequate expression of women any more than the representations of men, and also the actors and the models are perverted forms of man. The plots which induce our sympathy as though for humanity as a whole have nothing to do with humans, right? Even though they seem paragons of being a human, which is a perversion in itself. It meets a suspension of disbelief that learns to be almost chemically addicted to the experiences now that you're only going to really get while watching media. And sex organs work out the various so-called problems of the human race, while in fact inducing changes in your brain that are